The South China Sea is infamous for its volatile waters. In its calmest moments, the vast expanse can look like a mirror reflecting the heavens. But in its darkest hours, it transforms into a crucible of chaos, testing the limits of steel, technology, and human resolve. One such night, under the cover of pitch-black skies, a U.S. Navy destroyer faced a storm so violent it seemed less like weather and more like war. This is the story of endurance against nature's fury, how a warship built for combat against human foes had to battle its oldest adversary, the ocean itself, a night without a horizon. In the early hours before dawn, the South China Sea became unrecognizable. The horizon vanished into darkness, swallowed by rain, wind, and water. Enormous waves rose like skyscrapers, towering above the destroyer's steel hull. The ship climbed each mountainous surge, only to plummet down into troughs that felt bottomless. On the bridge, every eye remained locked forward. There was no rhythm to the sea, only unpredictability. Each impact felt like a thunderclap reverberating through the hull, shaking steel and bone alike. For the crew, there was only one thought that mattered. How long can this ship take it? The storm that would not relent. This wasn't an ordinary squall. It was a fully developed tropical storm, the type that tears fishing fleets to splinters and sends cargo ships to the ocean floor. Winds screamed at hurricane strength, shrieking through every seam in the destroyer's superstructure. Spray flew sideways across the decks, blinding sailors and scouring equipment. At times, the ocean and sky merged into a single, endless sheet of black. Lightning illuminated the chaos for mere heartbeats, painting the destroyer's silhouette against walls of boiling water before plunging everything back into darkness. Every time the bow crashed down, it disappeared momentarily under tons of green water. Anything not bolted to the deck was swept away instantly. Rails, loose gear, even protective covers ripped from their mounts. The destroyer groaned like a living being under the stress, its steel flexing but refusing to break. Engineers have a word for the crushing impact of waves, slamming pressure. To sailors, it feels like being hit by a giant's fist, over and over again. Technology meets its limits. Modern warships are marvels of engineering, equipped with radar systems capable of tracking hundreds of targets, navigation aids that map the sea with precision, and electronics designed for resilience. But no technology is immune to the sea. Sheets of seawater blinded the ship's advanced SPY-1 radar, rendering its massive detection range useless. Navigation screens flickered and dimmed. Electrical systems faltered under the assault of salt water and vibration. For terrifying stretches, the destroyer sailed blind through the storm. Scuppers, the drains built to channel water off the decks, spewed constantly, but even they struggled to keep up. Water raced across the deck like temporary rivers, threatening to shift the ship's balance. Sailors worked frantically to keep drains clear, knowing a single blockage could make the vessel unstable. Below deck, the storm was just as unrelenting. Vibrations rattled bunks, lockers, and even steel tables. The pounding wasn't simply noise. It was a constant reminder that the ship itself was being tested to its limits. The human element. If the ship was steel and circuits, the crew was muscle and nerve. Inside narrow passageways, sailors clipped themselves to safety lines, bracing against bulkheads to stay upright. In the berthing compartments, sleep was impossible. Racks, three-tiered steel frames with canvas stretched tight, rocked violently. Sailors strapped themselves in with belts just to avoid being thrown out. Each crash of the bow against a wave shook the compartments like an earthquake. Even meals became survival exercises. Hot trays and ceramic mugs were useless. Instead, rations were stripped down to the essentials: sandwiches, sealed containers, and coffee squeezed from bottles instead of poured into cups. Eating was not about comfort, it was about fuel. Meanwhile, damage control teams stood at the ready, helmets on and gear slung over their shoulders. They were prepared to face flooding, fires, or hull breaches at a moment's notice. These sailors drilled constantly for such emergencies, but drills in calm waters couldn't compare to the chaos of a storm that could toss them sideways with every step. The captain's calculated fight. At the center of it all, on the bridge under dim red lighting, the captain maintained calm authority. One hand on the rail, the other near the engine telegraph, he issued clipped commands. Bow into the waves. Reduce 5 knots. Hold her steady. Every order was repeated back instantly. There was no room for hesitation. In seas like this, hesitation killed. The helmsman fought the wheel with both hands, making small, deliberate corrections. An overcorrection could turn the ship broadside, exposing it to the waves in the most vulnerable position. Sailors know the unspoken rule: never turn broadside to the storm. Each glance at the inclinometer carried silent dread. 10 degrees of roll was manageable, 20 degrees was dangerous, 30 degrees could mean capsizing, and once a destroyer tips past a certain point, gravity ensures it doesn't recover. The specter of the rogue wave. As if the storm weren't enough, every sailor carried a deeper fear, one that went unspoken but never forgotten: the rogue wave. Unlike regular storm swells, rogue waves rise without warning, sometimes reaching 60 to 80 feet tall. They strike suddenly, like vertical walls of water, and vanish just as quickly. Scientists once dismissed them as sailors' exaggerations until 1995, when the Draupner oil platform in the North Sea recorded one towering over 80 feet high. Since then, countless ships have confirmed encounters, some limping home damaged, others never returning at all. For a destroyer, a rogue wave was every bit as deadly as a missile. Struck from the front, it could crack welds and cripple the ship. Struck from the side, it could roll the vessel past its tipping point. And in the storm that night, sailors knew one thing with certainty: if a rogue wave rose out of the chaos, their survival would be far from guaranteed. Teamwork and trust. In storms like these, technology falters and steel bends. But what keeps a ship alive is discipline. Sailors trained relentlessly to respond without panic, to move as one, and to trust the chain of command from the lowest deckhand to the captain himself. Damage checks, drain clearances, hatch reinforcements all happened seamlessly, even as the ship bucked and slammed against the waves. This wasn't about warfare. No missile, torpedo, or gun could fight the ocean. This was about endurance, teamwork, and the trust that every sailor placed in their shipmates, surviving the trial. Hours passed. The storm raged without mercy, but eventually nature relented. Winds eased. The waves stretched longer, their fury spent. Slowly, a horizon reappeared where none had existed for hours. The destroyer emerged battered but afloat. Steel bent, decks scarred, but the crew still standing. The storm had tested both ship and sailor, and both had endured. On the bridge, the captain looked out over calmer waters. He knew this wouldn't be the last storm. Out here, the sea never promises mercy. It arrives, it punishes, and it disappears, leaving only memories etched into those who survived. The true enemy at sea. The Navy trains for war, for battles against submarines, aircraft, and missiles. But sailors know the truth. The ocean is the greatest adversary of all. Unlike human foes, the sea doesn't negotiate. It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't quit. Every storm is a reminder that the destroyer is more than a warship. It's a lifeboat of steel, carrying the lives of hundreds who depend on seamanship, discipline, and each other. Because at sea, it's not the wave you see that ends you. It's the one that rises without warning. The one that proves no matter how advanced technology becomes, humanity will always be at the mercy of the ocean.